Hey guys, if you haven't watched part one of my rebuttal to Jake's video on cryptocurrency, please watch part one. I'll leave a link down below in the description. So this is part two of that video. So I hope you guys all enjoy. It did take me a very long time to make the video. So as you can see, it's still processing back there. Oh, I just think it just completed. So, but yeah, anyways, please enjoy this video and be sure to give me a like if you do enjoy the video.
This point that the remaining people who still have jobs are probably going to demand payment only in crypto. Why would you want worthless fiat money if governments are going to keep printing it? Workers would demand from their employers that they would only be paid in crypto. So let's figure it out. What's $12 an hour in bitcoins? It's 0.0003. However, the price of Bitcoin only goes up. So they would be these 0.003 Bitcoins would be worth more next month, next year. So the employee would be making more, but the employee can't make more because that would hurt the business. The business would go under if wages went up. So employers would constantly have to be deflating their own employees' salaries in Bitcoins to keep it pegged to the dollar, which nobody cares about, nobody wants. This is getting kind of comical or silly, but I'm just trying to explore what could happen if crypto did become the reserve currency for the average person. And the big
What's wrong with deflating the currency to like keep up with a living standard if the purchasing power is going up, right? So think about it. So I think Jake is getting too caught up with the numbers themselves, right? So the amount of dollars or liras or yuans or yens or bolivars, it doesn't matter, right? It's just a number. So what you care about is how much those yuans, those bolivars, those dollars can buy you at the store. So let me show you a chart of the latest prices as of 1971 in the United States, right? And these are in, of course, US dollars in 1971. So as you can see, the prices are way different than what they are now for everyday goods and items. Now pretend that I can snap my fingers and make prices return to those levels again now in 2022. However, the condition is that everyone's wages will be cut in half. So whatever you're making, if you're flipping burgers at McDonald's and you're making $10 an hour, now you're making five, right? So would you be mad, right? Like again, remember, I've also returned prices back to 1971 levels. So would you take this deal, right? Like if I gave you a choice, either nothing changes and everything remains the same as it is now, or I cut your wages in half, but I also magically make all the prices go back to 1971 levels. I think most of you, if you think about it, you would take that deal, right? Because you don't care about the number itself. Who cares if you're making on paper, like the number, half of what you're making before, if your purchasing power is so much higher with those five remaining dollars that you have, right? So yeah, I think that this whole idea of like that we somehow have to have inflating currency, that's crazy talk, right? So as to if workers demand to get paid in crypto in a deflationary currency, is that going to cause employers to like go out of business? Well, employers can just pay people less in terms of the crypto if the purchasing power of that crypto goes up, and workers would not riot because the purchasing power went up, right? So you're actually making the same amount, if not more, because your purchasing power went up. The number went down, but the purchasing power went up. Like, do you get how that works, right? So that's how like deflationary currencies work. So don't get too caught up in the numbers, right? So think about it this way. Let me give you another example, and I'll make this quick. Don't worry. I know I like to ramble, but so for example, for example, if you worked at a job where I gave you a 50% raise every single year, that sounds like a great job, right? Like, wow, I get 50% of my salary raised like every single year. But the catch is that you're paid in Zimbabwean dollars, right? Or Venezuelan bolivars, right? So in case you guys don't know, those currencies are inflating by much more than 50% per year, right? They're inflating by like hundreds, if not thousands of percentage points, right? So, your purchasing power just goes down, even though you're getting a 50% raise on paper. you're getting like a massive loss in terms of purchasing power. So that would actually be a bad time. You would have a bad time for you, even though technically on paper you're getting a 50% raise nominally, right? So the number doesn't matter. What you care about is purchasing power. So let's move on.
Biggest threat to capitalism would come from private investments. Capitalism is people with ideas going to people with money, people with capital, those are the capitalists, and for a share of that idea, for the share of this startup or new company, they give money and they receive part ownership. However, why would the sharks ever risk their money on a new idea, on a startup, when Bitcoin is a guarantee? If you can just put all your money in crypto and it only goes up forever, why would you ever risk your money on a new idea, on a private investment that could fail? For venture capitalists, they just plan to invest in 5 or 10 startups, knowing that 90% of them are going to fail. But if they can 10x their money or 100x their money on that one that succeeds, then they can get all their money back for their failures. And capitalism needs those failures. They need those experiments in order for the successful ones to propel our economy, to advance us as a species, basically, on this planet. The reason why we have such nice things is because of capitalism and its experimental process. But this wouldn't work if the venture capitalists just say, hey, I can guarantee a higher return if I just buy crypto. Which leads.
Okay, so again, Bitcoin or crypto is not a guarantee, right? It's pretty far from a guarantee, as you can see if you've been in crypto for longer than like 5 minutes, right? Because it does go up in terms of like long term, or like many don't go up over the long term. Actually, like a lot of them actually do go to zero. So it is kind of like a venture capitalist space in the sense that, like, 90% fail and 10% will succeed, right? So if we're talking about Bitcoin specifically, though, even Bitcoin, which has gone up consistently over the long term, it doesn't just, it's not a guarantee by any means, right? Bitcoin has had so many 80% plus corrections. So yeah, it's if Bitcoin goes down by 80% and you have some emergency and you need to crack that Bitcoin open to spend some of the money, well, you're down 80%. So tough luck, right? So that's kind of the risk that you're taking. But in return, Bitcoin has been known to give you a good long-term performance, right? So I don't want you to get into this like idea that somehow crypto is a guaranteed success. It's not, right? And if people tell you that it is, then they're probably trying to scam you.
Leads us to the next threat to capitalism, in that why would anybody ever buy corporate bonds? There are lots of reasons why our largest corporations have to issue debts. And what's the rate of return on a corporate bond? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% maybe at most. Why would you ever waste your money buying corporate bonds when Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is a guarantee? It only goes up forever.
Again, different risk to reward profiles, right? So what is the risk to reward of like Bitcoin versus a corporate bond? You got to make that determination, right? So it's like back in 2008 when Tesla was a tiny company and people thought that they were going to go bankrupt and they couldn't manufacture enough, like they couldn't get the Model 3 out the door, and they had trouble making the Model S. I think actually it was before the Model 3. So if we're talking 2008, they couldn't even get the Model S out the door. So people thought that Tesla was going to go bankrupt. So if Tesla were to raise money versus, let's say, Google, which was already a huge company at the time, if they were to raise money, then the risk profile would be different and the yields on their bonds would also be different, right? So you have to make that determination as to whether your money is best allocated in like a bond by Google or a Tesla bond or Bitcoin, right? So yeah, again, Bitcoin is not a guarantee.
So corporations in this crypto utopia future would really struggle issuing debt. So if there was any kind of economic downturn, they wouldn't be able to stay afloat to wait for a recovery. They would just have to lay off employees. If they can't issue debts, then they would have to sell assets and fire employees to remain solvent. So
You know what happens when companies can't issue debt? They have to pump up the interest rate, right? The yield just goes up like until someone's willing to invest that company. You're telling me that if Microsoft gave out like a 50% yielding bond that no one would want to buy it, like of course people would buy it a long time before the yield got that high, right? So it's like I think it's rather like insane to think about a future where no one would ever buy any corporate bonds like ever. Like the yield would just go up until someone's willing to buy. That's how free market works, right? So I don't understand where the confusion is coming from.
This is a huge concern. And if nobody's buying corporate bonds at 6 or 7%, then definitely nobody is buying government bonds at 2, 3, or 4%. And this is the arguments that people make when who are bearish on crypto. They say, hey, if this is a threat to the governments and their ability to issue debt, then they're just going to ban it. But I would argue that perhaps we've already reached a point where we can't do this. Maybe China can do it because they're not a democracy. But which political leader in America, which political party is going to ban crypto and then cause its collapse? And anybody invested in crypto would then lose their money. So this has already become a toxic issue that I think no politician will address. So governments, in my opinion, are well, democracies, anyways, in my opinion, are not going to stop it. They can't. It's political suicide.
I think I gotta like disagree with pretty much everything that he just said over there. Okay, so it's not like a toxic issue that like no one wants to stop. It's that crypto is actually promoting a lot of technological innovation that I think both parties can get behind, whether you're a conservative or a liberal, whether you're on the left or on the right. I think we can all look at payments technology and all this, censorship resistance currency and a currency that can't be manipulated by like any central entity, whether it be the United States government or the Chinese government or the Russian government. If we had a currency that can't be manipulated as decentralized, that's for the people, by the people, of the people, then why would government stop it, right? Why would America stop it? Maybe China would want to stop it because they're not really for the whole, liberty thing. But if America is really trying to be a country that promotes freedom and liberty, along with a lot of the Western world, like Canada, the UK, like Germany, countries like that, then I think this is something that we can actually see eye to eye on instead of political bickering that we're like that the left and the right they can be both for innovation, right? So don't look at it as it's like a toxic like threat that we need to stop, that no party's willing to stop. It's actually the opposite, right? It's actually a great innovation that both parties can get behind.
So, what does that mean for capitalism? What does that mean for our economy? So, to all you Bitcoin bulls out there, before you leave a comment telling me I'm an idiot, help me answer these questions. Help me solve these problems. How do we get
I will answer all of those questions. I think some of them were already addressed, but let me play the rest of the video and then I'll answer those questions. And then yeah.
get hackers to stop ransom attacks? If you can accept payments in anonymous cryptocurrency, how do we stop hackers from attacking pipelines and meatpacking plants? Any kind of small industry or business that doesn't have the cybersecurity protocols to stop them. Number two is, how do we continue to grow the economy if consumption declines? If everyone just puts their money in crypto because they know their money will be worth more in the future, that's not the same as investing in bonds or investing in stocks. When it goes into crypto, it just stays there. Crypto doesn't create jobs. Investing in stocks or buying bonds creates jobs. So
Let me push back on that before I forget. Crypto does create a lot of jobs, in case you haven't noticed, right? Like you literally have to be sleeping under a rock for the past, like 5 years to say that crypto doesn't create jobs. Like look at how many jobs, Coinbase, like Kraken, all these like crypto exchanges, all these even like companies like Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, they're all getting into crypto now, right? Like, look how many jobs, look at how big this industry has become. And the market cap of crypto in general, even though it's like crashed through the floor recently, is still over $1 trillion in market cap in total, right? So how could you say that it doesn't create jobs?
If there's a consumption decline, this is going to hurt tax revenue. GDP is going to slow down, if not reverse. How do we address this concern? Number three is what happens when employees start demanding that they be paid their wages in crypto. They don't want that fiat money. How do businesses stay alive or stay in business when the crypto they have to pay their employees is always increasing in value? How do you set prices for customers? How do you maintain books when you're dealing in an asset that's constantly going up in value? Number four, why would capitalists, billionaires, risk their money by investing in startups, investing in innovation, investing in new ideas, when crypto is a guarantee on their money? Won't this hurt innovation? Won't this hurt the economy if we fail to advance? That's the beauty of capitalism. Additionally, why would ordinary investors continue buying corporate bonds when they can guarantee themselves a higher return by buying crypto? What does this mean for our nation's corporations if they can no longer issue debt? And finally, with government bonds, if nobody's buying government bonds, what does that mean for our government? As someone who works in the military and needs to receive a paycheck, what does this mean for our nation's security? Now, once again, guys, I'm not arguing that this is a certainty, that this is definitely going to happen. I'm just saying it's a possibility that crypto bulls are not considering. They're not talking about. They just want.
Okay, actually, before I finish the video, let me go back and answer all those questions, right? So, number one, how do we stop ransom attacks? By practicing proper cybersecurity practices, right? I don't know what else to say. Listen, this isn't a crypto specific issue. So you have to take cybersecurity seriously these days, right? So no matter what company you are, if you're a pipeline company, if you're steel manufacturer, if you're a tech company, it doesn't matter, right? So if you have if your employees are falling for phishing attacks, or if you have company policy, if you have security loopholes, if you have company policy that's like, that leads to security loopholes, then you're going to have a problem, right? Not just with ransomware attacks, but just with data leaks and with all these issues in general. So I don't know why we're singling out excuse me. I don't know why we're singling out crypto in general for these like ransom attacks when it's a failure of cybersecurity in general, which is a problem that like every company has to deal with or without the existence of cryptocurrency. So that's number one. Number two, how do we grow our economy in a deflationary environment? Why would capitalists continue to invest in startups? So we just talked about this one. So again, different risk to reward profiles. It depends on how deflationary something is, right? And a few percentage points of deflation, I would argue, is not the end of the world, and it doesn't stop people from investing, right? So another example that I can think of is when the Russia-Ukraine conflict broke out in February. The Russian ruble, which is the Russian currency, initially took a tumble, right? So it fell by a lot, and then people were rushing to the Apple stores in Russia to buy up all the Apple products they could find, not because they actually needed those Apple products, but because they thought that the Apple products would retain value better than the ruble, right? Now, the ruble did end up climbing back up, and actually, it's at multi-year highs, and it's one of the, if not the best performing currency of 2022, but that's, besides the point. But like back then, at that point, people were rushing to the stores to spend their money as quick as possible, because not because they needed the products, but because they were afraid of inflation, right? So I think that having a deflationary currency can actually cut down on this rampant consumerism where people buy stuff that they don't actually need and they just toss them out, right? So in a deflationary environment, we would actually treasure the things that we buy, right? We would actually buy something because we actually need it, not because we just have to spend the money, right? So this idea of like getting people to spend the money because otherwise their money is gonna become worthless, it leads to just rampant consumerism and wastefulness in general in society, which is not a good thing you want to have at all. Right? So that's that. why would investors continue to buy corporate bonds? Oh, actually, sorry, I think I skipped one. Why would why would employers, why would businesses and employers pay workers if workers demand payment in crypto? So this one, it's we kind of already touched upon this one as well. It's that like I would argue that workers won't care that if you cut the number of coins that you're paying them, so long as their purchasing power stays the same or goes up, right? So as long as a business can ensure that the purchasing power of their employees stays constant, then it doesn't matter if you cut their wage, right? So like we're like so used to going to the grocery store and seeing prices go up, and we're okay with it. But what if you could go to the grocery store and see your prices go down, right? And the prices go down by more than what your salary goes down, then you're still on top, right? So again, we don't care about the nominal number. We care about purchasing power. That's the only thing that matters, right? So that's that. Why would investors buy corporate bonds? Again, we already answered that as well. Why would investors buy government bonds, right? When corporate bonds are higher yielding? Well, government bonds have different risk profiles than corporate bonds, which has different risk profiles than Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin may go up over the long term, but as you can see recently, it also can go down. So it's not a risk-free holding. So you have to determine where the risk level of Bitcoin lies between, corporate bonds, government bonds, stocks, all of that, right? So that's that. What does it mean if investors can no longer want to buy government bonds? Well, the yield just goes up. That's it.
For our governments, as someone who works in the military, about bringing down or weakening Apple or Microsoft or Facebook or Jamba Juice, it's a consideration that crypto success could come at the cost of private investments, corporate debts, and that has a serious implication for people's livelihoods, people's life as they understand it and they experience it under today's capitalist markets. Okay, guys, if you enjoyed this.
Okay, so I'm gonna end the video here. Last thing before we go, if I could just make one more comment. I just want to say that I think that fiat is actually a threat to capitalism. And let me just give you a quick example, right? So imagine this scenario. You work hard all your life, you get a job, and you manage to get a 5% raise every year, right? Except through money printing, the government devalues the currency and causes 10% inflation per year. So you're actually losing 5% of your purchasing power per year despite getting a raise, right? Because 10% inflation minus 5% raise, you're actually losing 5% of purchasing power. So now you're living paycheck to paycheck because every year you have to spend more and more on bare necessities. And yeah, while people who have real estate, who have stocks, who have assets, they continue to see the price of those assets go up because that's what inflation is, right? It's the rise in price of the things that you can buy with money. So inflation has basically, if you think about it in that scenario, taken money out of your pocket, the hardworking class people, and put it into the hands of people who already own a bunch of assets, i.e., rich people, right? So you're like widening the wealth gap more and more as time goes on through inflation. Now, one of the founding principles of capitalism is that so long as you're willing to work hard and you're willing to so-called pull yourself up by the bootstraps, as long as you're willing to work hard and pull yourself up by the bootstrap and go for the opportunity, you have the opportunity to achieve wealth. That's what capitalism in theory is supposed to promote, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. But through money printing, those who are already rich are seeing their wealth increase just at the expense of the poor people. By the way, they're seeing their wealth increase at the expense of the poor people just by doing nothing, right? So to me, is this scenario capitalist or is it anti-capitalist? I'm gonna let you answer that question, right? So again, this video is not meant to be like a diss towards Jake. I have a lot of respect for him. I really enjoy his content. I just think he's wrong on this particular topic. So that was a super long video. I'm going to leave it here. Thank you all for watching. If you stuck all the way till the end, give this video a like because it did take me a long time to put together. So yeah, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.